Hallo, Derek hier mit neuer Auszug aus unserer ersten Q&A-Session für Juni. Aus irgendwelchen Grund, da sind viele Adverbfragen diese Woche. Wir gehen dir ein bisschen ins Detail und beantworten die alle. Hier ist nur ein Auszug, so viel Interesse hast an das komplette Video. Das ist in der Mitgliedschaftsseite. Link in der Beschreibung unter diesem Video. Hier ist es. The next question is to do with hyphens, and it's quite a nice question. And it's talking about where you would put hyphens in certain examples. And the example I gave in the lesson was if you had a text with 24-hour shifts without any hyphens, you wouldn't really know what's meant. Do we mean 20 shifts of 4 hours? Do we mean 24 shifts of 1 hour? Do we mean one shift of 24 hours? It's really not clear what's meant. And so what we do here is we use the hyphens to make it clear. So if we just have 24-hour shifts with no hyphens, it's not clear. If we wanted to say it's 20 shifts each of 4 hours in length, then we would say 20 4-hour shifts. So the 4 hour is bound together by the hyphen. So then we have 20 shifts of 4 hours each. If we wanted to say that it was 24 shifts of 1 hour, it would be 20-4-hour shifts. And if it's just one shift for 24 hours, then we have 20-4-hour shift. Yeah. So we use the hyphen in this particular case to kind of make it clear which parts go together and what we're talking about. So it makes it clear for the reader, which is more important, because we might know what we mean, well, we should do, hopefully, but the reader needs to be clear what we mean. And so we use the hyphens to sort of make it a bit more obvious which parts go together. I hope that makes sense. So the next one is to do with placements of adverbs of certainty. So the sentence example was, I would certainly be upset if you forgot my birthday, and ask why the word be is after the adverb of certainly. And it's true that you would normally have the verb, the adverb after the verb. So I am definitely on holiday next week. But if you have an auxiliary verb, which we do here, I would, then you kind of put the adverb between the auxiliary verb and the main verb to get I would certainly be upset. So the rule is kind of the adverb comes after the verb unless it's got an auxiliary verb, and you put it in the middle. Now the next question is again to do with there seems to be lots of adverbs today, and it's asking about ordering adverbs in terms of, say, in this case, adverbs of certainty from sort of high to low. So you could, like the list that was given, if you had the list certainly, definitely, probably, undoubtedly, surely, likely, clearly, obviously, lots of them. Yeah. How would you order them, and on what basis do you use to determine the certainty level of each one? Now this is nothing you can sort of work out mathematically. Yeah. What you have to do, it's very subjective. So like for one person, they might say certainly is sort of at a higher level than definitely. And the next person might say, no, definitely is higher than certainly. And then the third person might say, no, they're both about the same, which is difficult to sort of order them. So what I usually suggest in cases like this is to think of it in terms of sort of 3 bands, high, middle, and low. And so things like certainly, definitely, unmistakably would go in like the high band. Yeah. And in the middle band would be things like likely, probably. No? And in the lower band, you would have things like maybe, possibly, and then you can put them in sort of high, medium, low, because most people, even if they thought that maybe certainly was higher than definitely or definitely higher than, they would all agree that they're a lot higher than maybe. And you can also do this not just with adverbs of certainty, but also adverbs of frequency. So you would have things, actually frequency is a slightly different case, because you have two kind of constants, as it were. You have never, which you can assign 0% of the time, and always, which you can assign 100% of the time. But then in between that, it doesn't really make sense to sort of assign values to things. And again, with adverbs of frequency, I would recommend thinking it in terms of three bands of high, medium, and low. So it'd be things like often and frequently and invariably. And then in the middle band would be things like, sometimes, occasionally, going down to sort of rarely, seldom, and just block them in groups rather than trying to order each individual word in a sort of definitive list, because it's subjective and your answer will be different from somebody else's. Yeah, that's all we got to say about that. Yeah, and the next one is, again, adverbs, again, of degree. But I said, in the sentence, Alan said scarcely a word during the meeting. Why is the word scarcely placed after said? And generally, how do we know where to place adverbs of degree in a sentence? So adverbs of degree generally go before the word they're describing or emphasizing. So in this particular case, we're emphasizing the lack of words that he said, not the way he said them. It is quite a sort of subtle distinction, but I hope it's clear. So if he said scarcely a word, he spoke very few words. But if he scarcely said a word, it would mean that the word he spoke was somehow quiet. It's like I say, it's subtle, but where you place the adverbs of degree is usually before the thing you're emphasizing. And the last question is about adverb placement generally. And again, there's no sort of one blanket answer. I've got an example which will show you sort of really how the word order does make a difference. So what we've got here is about someone going to or not going to a party. So one version is, she isn't definitely going to the party. And if we swap two words around, we get, she definitely isn't going to the party. And these are two completely different statements, because it's not like maths. In maths, you've got this, what's it called, associative property, where say 2 times 3 is the same as 3 times 2. But this isn't maths, this is English, and you can't do this. So what you have to do, if you take something like, she isn't definitely going to the party, she said she's got the invitation, think, yeah, I'd like to go, sounds like fun, I'm not completely sure. So she isn't definitely going. If you want to assign a percentage which doesn't really make sense, call it 75-80%. But the other version, where we've just swapped two words around and we said she definitely isn't going to the party, that's zero chance. So she isn't going to the party and she's definitely sure this is true. So she's definitely isn't going to the party. And just swapping two words around can really change the meaning quite drastically. So I hope that's sort of clear. Das war das Auszug für diese Woche. Ich hoffe, es war informativ und interessant. Wer Interesse hat an dieser Mitgliedschaftsseite, komm bitte rein. Ich sehe dich gern da. Sind alle willkommen. Bis demnächst. Tschö. Ach, übrigens, wenn du eine Frage trotzdem beantwortet haben willst, einfach in den Kommentar stellen. Wird auf jeden Fall beantwortet. So jetzt wirklich. Tschüss.